Next, we all saw this incredible moment when our next guest arrived back in the UK alongside Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. After years of imprisonment in Iran, they were finally reunited with their families in these emotional scenes. Retired engineer Anoosheh Ashoori was accused of spying for Israel in 2017. He was then grabbed off the street and imprisoned whilst visiting his elderly mother in Tehran. Back home, his family tirelessly campaigned for his release whilst he spent almost 5 years in jail. And I'm really thrilled to say that Anoosheh and his wife Sherry join me now. How many days of freedom have you tasted now? I'm wondering whether it still feels a little bit bizarre to you to even be here.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, how many days? I bet you're...
It's almost 3 weeks.
It's almost 3 weeks. Is it settling in now that you're home, it's over? Or are there still moments where you have a moment where you think, where am I?
Yes. I used to have dreams about my wife and kids, and I used to wake up to my cell. It is still going on. I cannot. But this time, I usually touch her hands while we are asleep, and I want to make sure that this is reality and this is not a dream.
So many false hopes over those 5 years. How has it been? I mean, you must have dreamt of these moments of being back together and wondered whether would it ever happen.
Absolutely. I think as the years went by, the dream became more and more sort of unattainable. Some days you give up. You think, am I going to ever see my husband again? Or I'm sure he thought the same. But at the back of your mind, you still have hope. You know, you never lose that hope because otherwise you would stop campaigning. Yeah. So the fight has to go on. And just be clear, in our case, it came true.
Yeah, well, thank goodness. You guys got together at university here in the UK, didn't you? Is that right? Where were you? What were you doing?
I did aircraft design at Cranfield.
Yeah, and where were you there as well?
No, I was at Wolverhampton. I was at Wolverhampton University, but we met just before going to university.
Amazing.
And and I was doing my degree there.
You've been together all these years as a couple.
Yes.
I just wonder, Anoosheh, for you, you know, Sherry here, obviously, there was a couple of months right at the beginning of when you were grabbed off the street where there was no contact. And I honestly, you know, if I don't speak to my partner for a week, you know, it's a disaster, you know, it's terrible. I don't know, for those 2 months, that must have been the worst period, was it? Those first 2 months, not knowing, for either of you. Would that be right? Or...
Absolutely. I think the first 2 months, we had no idea what was happening there. He had no idea what was happening to us. He was being threatened. He was being interrogated. You know, he was deprived of sleep. He was subjected to psychological torture. And we were suffering a different kind of torture because we had no idea what was happening. Yeah.
But I mean, it's incredible because, of course, now you're reconnecting after spending 5 years apart. And you've brought a diary along there, haven't you? Which, tell me why that is so important to that hope that you were talking about that kept you going for this moment, you know, to be together again.
What inspired me was a book by Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning, that it means that you have, if you're going through suffering, if you find a meaning or find a purpose in that suffering, then it's no longer a suffering. So I try to have that inspiration in me. And in fact, it was Sherry's birthday. That is 2019. So we had 2 rose bushes in a yard, in a small yard that we had.
At the prison?
Yes. So I dried this up for her birthday, which was on the 12th of September. I don't know.
And did you keep that in your diary? Were you able to receive it? Were you able to send it to her?
When I went out on furlough, my first furlough, I gave it to my mother-in-law, and she brought it to Britain.
Gosh. And to get flowers on your birthday from prison in Iran, Sherry, I mean...
Yeah, it was surreal.
It's surreal, right? It's so beautiful. But I know you said that when you were... Before the imprisonment, you might forget your birthday sometimes.
Absolutely, yes,
It's like most men.
Yes, I did forget. You did forget a couple of Valentine's days, a few birthdays and stuff, but he became very punctual once he went to prison.
Yeah, it's incredible. And tell me, in a way, how he's changed. Have you noticed changes in Anoosheh in the last 3 weeks?
Yes, most definitely. I think he's a bit used to that routine. So even now, sometimes early mornings, he will suddenly jump up, and I'll ask him why, and he thinks there's a head count. Because in prison, they had to wake up every day at a set time to do a head count. So he's still doing that. He's still jumping up for that. He's still going around asking for permission to use stuff. He's very sensitive to noise. So if I shut the fridge door, he'll jump. I said, why is it so loud? And
What do you mean about permission to use things?
First day he came, I think, well, the first day we returned home, he went to use a mug to make tea. And he said, can I use this mug? And I said, well, of course you can. You know, it's your home as well. So I think it's going to take a bit of time to come out of that mindset.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because freedom, we think, is you being here, but freedom is also being free in your mind to accept the freedom that you have again. How are you finding it?
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Still, I don't know whether this is a dream as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm afraid I might wake up back to myself.
Hold his hand quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quickly squeeze it. Let him know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I bet you don't want to let each other go now. I mean, you know. And what are your hopes, Anoosheh, now for both of you? You know, apart from, I suppose, the mundane things of life are the things you miss the most.
Well,
The dog, of course, we've got... My producer's gone, don't forget the dog. Your beautiful dog.
Yes.
Who remembered you, is that right?
Yes, it did.
Absolutely.
5 years.
He's been sleeping between us every
this
night.
Romeo?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Romeo, yeah.
He's been sleeping between you?
Yes, every
Hang on
night.
a minute. You want to knock that on the head.
Yeah. And no, we've started taking him out again on walks and trying to get back to daily routine life, basically.
In fact, yesterday we had a walk in the park, and that was my first walk. Not a dream, hopefully a reality, that we went through the path that we used to go, and that was out of this world.
To be able to do it for real.
Yes,
after all this
hopefully.
time. Hopefully. And I know it's your birthday, isn't it, next week? Do you feel able to celebrate that?
This is another challenge. I'm not going to have a celebration as such. We may have a gathering, home gathering, but until the rest of the British nationals are freed, we are not...
Is it Murad you're talking about?
Murad as well.
Yeah.
And Murad is ill and he needs medical attention and he's not getting it.
And his family thought he'd be part of the package that,
yes,
you know,
and
the deal that
he should have been on that aeroplane with us. And until we actually got on board the aeroplane, I was just looking to see if there is anybody else joining us. Unfortunately, it didn't happen.
And so in your heart, you feel that the campaign that you have been doing for Anoosheh, in some way you owe a debt to Murad and the others there
Yes.
to also give this freedom, give this moment to them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we wish you all the best.
So
and I do just want to say...
we'll celebrate when Murad is back.
Yes, well, I think that's wonderful. Let me just tell you that the government have responded to that. They say, we are urgently raising Murad's case with the Iranian authorities. He must be allowed to return to his family's home in Tehran immediately, as the Iranian government committed to doing so. So let's hope that as eventually you and Nazanin found joy, that he too will. But it is wonderful to see you both together.
Thank you.
It gives us all, you know, the idea of what you do in suffering. We think we suffer, but when we hear your suffering, we know what we have is possibly just joy and just a momentary feeling, right? It's incredible to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Don't forget, you can watch full episodes of Lorraine on the ITV Hub and all the best clips, compilations and playlists right here on our channel. Just subscribe now and you'll never miss an upload. Click here to watch another video similar to this one, or click here to head to our channel's homepage to explore all of our exciting videos.